Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Solar Sidekicks. My name is Pat Southwell, and I'm your host. We're here at Roy Door Reserve recording for Radio Karam, the community radio station. Thanks, everyone, for the feedback I've been getting on social media so far. It's been really good. Had a lot of great guests. Thanks again to Steve Kostoff for last week. I got some really good feedback about that, and yeah, much more interesting guy than I thought you were, Steve. So thanks very much for coming in and everything you do in the industry. So first of all, I just wanted to do a acknowledgement of the traditional landowners of where we are today. That's the Boon Wurrung people of the Kulin Nation. And I pay my respects to all elders past, present and emerging. Just wanted to tidy up last week's episode. There's not much to tidy up, I suppose, but the main thing is the intro music. I couldn't remember. I sort of cat got my tongue a little bit with who it was. So it's a song from the TV series Daisy Jones and the Six, and it's on Prime Video. And if you're into music from the sort of late 70s, like Fleetwood Mac, and you like that sort of rocking out stuff like I do, jump on and have a watch. It's actually a really good watch. So that's where I've got that from. The song, it's actually comes up as the Dunn Brothers, Look Me in the Eye. So one of my favourite songs. So that's why we have it here. All right, so we've tidied all that up. Let's go into today's guest. Today's guest we have coming down to Radio Karam. We have Leila Playmore. So Leila, thank you very much for coming and welcome to Radio Karam.
Happy to be here, Pat.
No worries. Thanks so much. So, Leila, you are from inverter manufacturer Selectronic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, right. So, first of all, let's how was your trip down to Karam? Was it all right?
Yeah.
Made your way down okay?
Yeah, good little drive. No issues at all.
Yeah. What do you think of it down here? Nice little
it's
community space.
Yeah, you got the oval and kids playing sport and fitness classes on and this little radio station. It's really sweet.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. You actually came down. Sometimes it's not quite as busy. I think it's almost full capacity this morning. So we've got kids running around everywhere. Yeah, fitness classes like you mentioned. Yeah. Car park full.
Yeah.
So it was on a Friday morning. We're recording this. So yeah, it's all happening at Karam at the moment. So great little community place.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Leila, you've been at Selectronic now for 2.5 years. Is that right?
Yeah, about 2.5 years. It'll be my 3-year anniversary at the end of August.
End of August.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So I've got you down as the Australian channel manager. Is that right?
Yeah, that's my title. Yeah, so my role is dual. I have responsibility for distribution, and I also have a sales responsibility for Queensland.
Yeah, okay. So you go up to Queensland much?
Yeah, yep. Look, it's been once a month so far this year since I kind of took over. We had a previous sales rep that was based in Queensland. He's moved on and is now working for a system integrator that installs Selectronic.
Yeah, okay, cool. Very good. So you would have done a bit of business when I saw you up at the Solar and Storage Live conference in Brisbane. You would have done a bit of business up there, I would have thought.
Yeah, that was great. I mean, the first day, there's a lot of energy. It felt a little bit different. It was so nice to have something local for all the Queenslanders.
Yep.
Day 2 was a bit quiet.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was really good to, I think it's been 2013 or something since they had the last, conference.
Yeah, it would have been actually. I think probably ATRA. Probably ATRA in 2013, something like that.
Yeah, it's before my time actually. I've only been 100% solar for about 3.5 years.
Yep.
I started getting into solar and microgrids, and that world was something that came into my sphere when I was living in remote Australia.
Yeah, I want to ask you about that as we get through your journey into this industry. I'm quite interested about that. I reckon you've got some interesting stories to tell about that.
Yeah,
so it'd be interesting to hear about that.
Yeah,
we're actually we're on the same plane. I think both times, weren't we? In Brisbane, because I saw you.
Yes.
I think I saw you. Yep. We were on an early morning flight on the way up there.
Yeah, I don't know why I was insanity. I don't know why I did that.
Yeah, well, that's the one. That's the first time I've ever flown business class.
Yeah.
got a little upgrade, which I didn't even have to pay very much for. So I got an upgrade, and Yeah, I think I might have told you the story how I knocked over, as soon as I got into business class, I knocked over the passenger next to me. I knocked over a drink as soon as I was putting my bag up. So that's
embarrassing.
Yeah, welcome to business class, Pat.
You're not going to be allowed back.
No, that's right. And then we had to actually, I think you thought you were on the flight before me getting home, and we actually ended up being on the same flight. So we had a good chat at the airport as well.
Yeah, I get confused sometimes with time. Time's one of my sort of sticking points. Time and direction.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, I think it's funny. Like so many people I've met in this industry, it's been like conversations at the airport. Like I know I'd met you a couple of times before that, but we actually got to know each other quite well, having a chat and a bit of dinner and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've had a few good airport conversations. They're actually the waiting lounge is actually quite a good spot.
I don't mind that time before I get on a plane. You can collect your thoughts. I actually end up doing quite a bit of shopping. In airports, strangely enough.
Pay top dollar, don't you? Do you pay top dollar?
I know, but I just don't often get a chance to go and shop at any other time. So, sometimes it'll be I've had to buy a suitcase when they've destroyed it, or
phone charger.
Yeah,
phone
big
charger.
One. Yeah. I've bought lots of books. Yeah,
there's always good bookstores at the airport. You're right about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good. And we actually, you pretty much, well, you said you consider coming on this podcast when we had a discussion up at Glenn Morris's place a few weeks ago when we went up to that open day.
Yeah, that was so awesome to see the success that Mora Mora has been. 50 years?
It was 50 years. That was what we were there for, 50-year anniversary of Off-Grid Living.
Yep. Yeah, just amazing. Because it would have started at a time when it just wasn't done. Like, how did you do that in 74 or whatever it is? So, how do you be off grid? So they've paved the way for the rest of us to do that.
Most definitely. Told a lot of good stories there. I was quite, a lot of them I've probably sort of heard before, but just to actually hear the people say those words and to see how excited everyone is about it, and they're all living in their own houses in a community, it's quite amazing.
Yeah, it is.
It really is quite amazing.
Yeah.
And I noticed also our kids took a bit of a liking to each other. I think my my three boys went up and were playing with your kids, and I don't know what they were doing. They ran off and
they found the basketball court and they found the trampoline.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So we didn't have any broken bones, so that was good. My kids have actually said they want to move up there. So I'm.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. They haven't mentioned it for at least a week or two now. So let's hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway.
Oh, look, I think, that would be the beautiful thing about potentially being in that kind of community is having all the kids around to play with each other. And, it used to be a lot more like that, I think, when we were growing up. That, there was a lot more children in the street and, you'd go out in the street and you'd play or you'd go to the vacant lot or the paddock or whatever.
Make your own fun outside.
Make your own fun outside, absolutely. And I think that's something that's maybe missing from a lot of our kids' lives these days.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's why I think it's so important having this like community place where we come down and spend time as a family, and with the community, it's actually really good. Gets kids off their iPads, off their PlayStations, whatever it is. Yeah. And it gets them out and the kids create a bit of havoc around here actually when there's events on.
But it's the way it should be. Yeah. It should be like that. So yes, no, it was great. And I was so happy I could take my kids up and show them that, the way that we're doing things is not always the way that everybody does it. And, that's, I think a great thing you can do as a parent is, to show that there is difference in the world.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, well said. So I want to, let's have a little bit of chat about your journey now. Mm-hmm. I didn't actually know this until you mentioned it. You're a licensed electrician.
Yes.
I had no idea. I didn't know you were a licensed electrician. Interested
I
about
don't have a badge.
No, you don't. You don't. So you, where did you do your apprenticeship? I'd be interested to know that.
At that stage, I think it was called the Electrical and Electronic Group Training Company, and while I was working for them, it changed to VicTech Group Training.
You were a group trainer, were you? You were in group training.
I was in group training, yeah. So it was actually the beginning of group training. And I was doing electronics at high school.
Oh, right, yep.
And this man from NECA came and taught us how to solder And he was like, oh, you know, we're thinking of starting this group training company. We know that there's a shortage of electricians. You know, we've got together with the ETU and we're going to do this. And we're going to take on 100 apprenticeships. That's going to be the trial. We'll do 50 in August and we'll do 50 in November. And I went, oh, when in November? And he's like, oh, probably, you know, the end of November. And I'm like, oh, well, I'll be able to finish year 12.
Yeah, right.
So I thought, yeah, why not? So I finished year 12. I'd already applied for it, got the job, and I had a place at university as well.
Yep. You did. Yeah, so you're already booked to go to uni and everything.
Yeah, but I got into applied physics. And I'm like, I don't know if I really want to be in a physics lab my whole life. I'm too much of a talker. That's probably the biggest criticism of all the people that I worked with when I was an apprentice, that I talked a bit too much.
Yeah.
But I loved it. And I thought, well, you know, I can always defer. I can try it, see if I like it. If I don't like it, I've still got my place at uni.
Yeah.
And I loved it. It was just great fun. And so I just kept going. Finished my time, worked at Monash University, went for a job with them, and worked at the Clayton campus. And that started to get a bit boring because it was maintenance and I needed a change.
Yep.
So
who were you doing your apprenticeship with?
Well, I did it with lots of different companies. Yeah. So that was the group training
There was
model.
a group, that's the group training. So a lot of the time, a lot of the group people that I know who've done group training kind of get not stuck with one, but very familiar to one. Was that you with Monash? You sort of got...
No. I didn't do my apprenticeship with Monash. That was my first job as a tradesperson.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah. No, my first stint was with the Public Transport Corporation.
Right, okay.
Yeah, so the tramways, in fact, before it was all sold off.
Yeah, right.
So I worked for them for just over a year.
Yep.
And it was supposed to only be for a year, and my year ticked over, and they
stayed there?
Well, I didn't want to because I wanted to get on and do other things. So there was another guy that started at the same time, did the same intake as me, and started at PTC as well, a guy called Kane. And he stayed. And that he just stayed there the whole time. And I don't think he actually qualified in the end.
Oh, right.
Yeah. And so, I was like, no, I need to get different experience. They've taught me everything that I can learn here.
Yeah, so this is before profiling, right? So you wouldn't have done any of that profiling stuff. You pretty much just get to your 4 years and you got to sit your exams. That's right, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. And so, I then went on to various other things. I worked in construction. I worked at the Melbourne Exhibition Centre. I worked at the Crown Casino doing the hotel locking system. I worked at SO House. That was all, again, security and security cameras. Did lots of different stuff. And it was really good fun.
Yeah, good stuff. How did you go with your exams, doing your A grade?
Just did it.
You just breezed through?
Yeah. Trade school was pretty easy.
Where'd you go to trade school?
Box Hill.
Yeah, same as me.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
There you go.
I was naughty though. I'd go out every night before trade school and not sleep and go to trade school.
Yeah, I think I was. I might have been a little bit guilty of that. It almost for some. It wasn't quite a day off, but yeah, I used to go on Thursdays, so I knew Wednesday night.
Thursday.
Yeah. Did you go Thursdays too?
I went Thursdays. Yeah. So Wednesday night, I'd go into town, dance all night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, we used to duck over to the Box Hill RSL.
Yeah.
As well, because that was one of the only places in Box Hill that served alcohol. So we were over there at lunchtime.
Yeah. No, I get the train into town and then I get the first train home. And go to trade school straight from being out. Yeah. Go home, have a shower, get changed, go to trade school.
Yeah, we're teaching these apprentices now bad habits, I think.
Oh, I'm sorry. But while you're young and you've got the energy.
Yeah.
You know.
For sure.
Yeah.
Oh, very, very good. So you, how did you get into solar then? How did that come about?
That's all the remote story because, I mean, ultimately, when you live somewhere where there is no grid, and there was grid of sorts in Karratha, but it's locally generated. It's not connected to the greater network.
Is that still the case? Are they still?
Oh, yeah.
It is, isn't
still
it?
be, yeah.
Yeah.
For
I know it's
sure.
different to the NEM over in Western Australia.
Yeah. But also you're talking about it's 1,500 kilometres north of Perth, and it's 900 kilometres south of Broome or something like that.
Middle of nowhere, really.
Yeah, it is, and it's a city. It's got city status while I was there. 20,000 people.
Yeah.
And there's a Coles and a Woolworths.
Wow.
Yeah. And there's a
Kmart?
There was a Kmart and a Country Target.
Hang on, what are the Kmart's called? K-Hub, is it?
No,
Is
it wasn't.
K-Hub?
It wasn't a
Oh,
K-Hub.
that's probably what. They're probably more new.
Yeah,
The
maybe
Target
that's a
Country,
modern
though.
thing. Yeah, Target Country.
You know, a country town's made it when they get a Target Country.
Yeah. So, and there was a library, and it had everything that we wanted. It was a great community. My youngest was 3 months old when we moved there.
Yep.
Had a beautiful time there. Spent all my time at the community house, and I taught babies music classes and babies art classes and 3-year-old kindy.
Wow.
So yeah, something completely different.
You taught 3-year-old kindy?
I taught 3-year-old kindy.
There you go.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't the main teacher. I was the helper, but yeah, because I didn't do any training and all that. But
So what made you move up? Let's say your kid was 3 months old. Is that right?
Yeah. My
Why'd
youngest.
you move up there, 3 months old?
My ex was in the army.
Yeah.
So
okay.
that's why we ended up in Perth.
Yep.
And we did 4 years in Perth. And then we had the choice of either going to Karratha or Lismore.
In northern New South Wales?
Yep.
Yeah, right.
Yep. And we chose Karratha. Thought it's a bit more interesting. You never get a chance to go somewhere like that. Whereas, Lismore's just kind of near Byron Bay. It's on the East Coast. It's probably much easier to get to at any point in time. But Karratha, like, when would you ever live in Karratha? So, yeah.
And this is like before the whole mining boom and stuff, was it? Or was it?
Oh, yeah, no, it was during the mining boom.
It was during, was it?
Yeah. So, it was insane. One of my friends, her husband was working for Horizon Power.
Yep.
And they were paying his wage for his whole family to live there and his rent. And it was a phenomenal amount of rent. And the town was full to overflowing. And then people started to leave, and there was like 40% vacancy rates because Rio Tinto laid off a whole lot of people, and Woodside laid off a whole lot of people or moved their jobs. And and then the town started to empty and rents went right down. So we saw it change while we were there. When we moved there was direct flights to Sydney and to Melbourne.
Yep.
6 months later, you had to go via Perth.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you stayed there through that and you saw all that happen. Did you?
Yeah.
How much longer did you stay around?
So we were in Karratha for 3 years. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it was an amazing 3 years. I mean, just the most amazing skies and red rocks and spinifex and wildflowers and, very little rain. Every day was sunny.
Warm weather too, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, very, very hot. 38 degrees at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
A bit different to what we've got at the moment, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. And then you've got also you spent some time in the Northern Territory as well.
Yeah, so after that we went to Darwin and we did it as a drive. We went up north to Broome and then we drove across to Darwin.
What's that drive like? I never even thought of taking that road. What's that? It's not
probably
sealed, is it? Not sealed? Is it?
It is sealed.
It
yeah,
is sealed.
Yeah, it's sealed. Yeah.
Didn't know that.
It's a pretty regular drive, I think.
Oh, is it?
So you got Port Hedland, which is a major export.
Yep.
It's about 2.5 hours north of Karratha. I did the drive a few times. Broome was a nice place to go and have a holiday.
Yeah. I know a lot of people that holiday in Broome quite frequently.
It's gorgeous. It's absolutely just stunning. But you drive through a place. There's a caravan park place called 80 Mile Beach.
Yep.
And it's diesel generators. And that's the kind of stuff that opens your eyes and you go, oh, people don't have power easy out here.
So did that sort of make you think about working where you do now? Like, did that sort of...
I think it was the seed that, grew from there, because then I went to Darwin.
Yeah.
And the reason we chose Darwin, because again, we had that choice. Darwin or Townsville was the choice.
Yeah, they're both big army cities, aren't they?
They are both big army cities.
Yeah.
And when, that choice was given, I looked at jobs for myself.
Yep.
What jobs are kind of in Townsville at the moment? What jobs are in Darwin at the moment? There seem to be a lot more jobs in Darwin. And there was a job advertised for my old company. And I went, oh, well, they're there. That's sort of, maybe I could work for them again.
Yeah.
And that wasn't at the point when we were leaving. That was just at the point when we had to make our decision of where we would go.
Yeah.
And so we put that down on the paperwork, and that's where we got to go. And then we settled in, and there was another job going with that company again. So I went, oh, okay, well, I'll apply for that. And I started working for ABB again in the Northern Territory. I'd worked for them previously in Melbourne, but this was their electrification products division. Whereas the previous division that I'd worked in was electric motors.
Right, okay.
Yeah, which is called Motion now.
Right.
Yeah, because it now incorporates drives and robotics.
Yep.
But yeah, back then it was electric motors and.
When are we talking this? When are you? What year are you around then? Make that decision?
When I was in Darwin, you mean?
Yeah.
Or that's 2017.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's quite an interesting place, Darwin. I lived there for a little while. But I can't really say live there because I didn't really stick it out. Company, I went up there for work thinking about moving the family up there.
Yeah, wow.
And I sort of did the trial run and then thought, no, this isn't happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just really disorganised company.
Yeah.
And it's, I was there at the end of the wet season.
Yes.
So it was quite hot.
It's always hot.
Yeah, it is always hot.
It is, yeah.
When I was up there, we got like one dry season day.
Yeah.
I think it would have been around April, and we got one dry season day. I thought, this is pretty good. I can get used to this. It was about 32, 33 degrees, and the humidity dropped right down, and then every other day was 32, 33, but like 70% humidity.
Yeah.
Gets really tough to do stuff in the middle of the day around Darwin.
Yeah, you got to be prepared to just be covered in sweat.
Yeah. Well, I actually noticed a lot of the people who work up in Darwin end up not working the middle hours of the day. Some of them go to the pub.
Yeah.
That seems to be quite common up there. And then they go back to work later on when it's, the sun's not quite as strong.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Oh, look, it was the same in Karratha. It's hot and dry there, but, there was some people working on the outside of a building and they're in the cherry picker.
Yeah.
And beach umbrellas.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, definitely a different world up there.
Yeah.
Quite an interesting place. All right. Well, I think we're going to look to go to our first word from our sponsors. When we come back, Leila, I want to have a bit more of a chat about what you do at Selectronic and a few different thoughts on the industry and some other things that you're interested in the industry and what you do.
Yeah, sure.
So we'll go to a word from our sponsors, and we'll have a chat about Leila's journey and plenty more other things coming up as well. Okay, and we're back from the word from our sponsors. Thank you very much to the sponsors the sponsor for Radio Karam. Appreciate what you do, and it's really important to the radio station running smoothly. So thank you very much. Much appreciated. All right, Leila, we've had a little bit of a break now. You mentioned you're interested in some of the microgrids in Darwin. Let's have a chat about that. What have you got to say about microgrids in Darwin?
So we arrived in Karratha, got ourselves settled, and I started to look for a job and saw a job going with the previous company that I'd worked for in Melbourne before I had my babies. And so I went for a job with them, but it was a different division. Yep. And
same people at all? Any of the same people?
No. I mean, it was ABB, and ABB is just a massive entity, 147,000 people worldwide. So big, in fact, I don't think ABB Australia actually knew that they had a branch in Darwin. The centre of excellence for microgrids was Darwin. And, you'd see all the literature come out saying, ABB locations in Australia, and they would always leave Darwin off.
Yeah,
it was very bizarre. Because they're very focused on their own little silos, unfortunately. And there was no electrification product people in Darwin. The majority of the team was what they called microgrids.
Yep.
And then there was also some people that were doing instrumentation, mostly looking after the water supply for Darwin.
Yeah.
They were instrumentation technicians. So this job was going. The manager at the time decided that it was a good thing to have somebody located in Darwin to look after the Darwin customers and the Northern Territory customers.
Yep.
And so I went for the job and got it, and found myself introduced to the world of microgrids and off-grid, because that's what the microgrids team were doing. They were comprised of a business that had started 20 years earlier, mostly doing flywheel technology.
Yep.
And then they moved into batteries and had their own software to control, and they were bought by ABB.
Right.
And then subsequently, while I was there, they were actually bought by Hitachi.
Yep.
So they're now Hitachi Energy. There's a great test facility there. That's actually where I met Steve Koskoff.
Yep.
He came to have a look at the test facility to see if it would be suitable for him to train people to get their solar accreditation.
Yep.
So that's how I met Steve back in Darwin. And it opened my eyes to, I'd seen it firsthand coming across from Karratha to Darwin, seeing, staying in places where there's the hum of generators, and that's where the power's coming from.
Yeah, right. So they're not connected to the grid. They're just running off diesel generators as their primary power source.
Yep.
Obviously, no batteries. I mean, maybe batteries, possibly.
Maybe sometimes.
Not much, though.
Yeah. It just depends on whether or not they have moved into that technology, because unfortunately diesel is still pretty cheap, and it's often subsidised as well for people.
In those remote areas?
Yeah. But it's a double whammy. You're trucking diesel to burn diesel. Like, it's just a horrible thing. You're burning diesel to burn more diesel. And then you send the truck back to fill up again and,
burn more diesel.
Yeah.
How much of it do you reckon is in Australia that we don't really know about? Like, there's all these communities and there's little towns.
Absolutely. There's so much of it.
Yeah.
Because, we're dotted with cattle stations and small communities and farms, and even dairies in Victoria are still burning diesel to milk their cows because they might have a grid connection, but it's insufficient.
Yeah.
So they can't run the machines.
So what role you reckon batteries have got to play with this? What role?
They are so important.
Yeah.
They're the way out.
Are we starting to see it now, do you reckon? Like, is that where a lot of the customers that you're seeing that are buying Selectronic inverters and that you're dealing with, are they looking for those type of solutions?
Look, definitely. I mean, that's what Selectronic has been doing since they started to make their first inverter in the 80s.
Yep.
Was they provided a battery inverter. It's not a solar inverter.
Yep.
It's taking AC to DC and DC back to AC.
Yep.
And so, that's where it all began. There is no grid connection. It's a no-brainer. You put in a Selectronic, you put in some form of charging. That could be managed AC coupled solar with an S-cert, or it could be DC coupled solar. You have a backup generator, but you only have to generate or exercise it or use it when there's really bad weather. So, you then have a situation where you've got better power and it's nice and green.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you reckon we're going to get to a stage, inevitably, where we don't have to rely on diesel generators? Like, do you reckon... do you reckon it's 50 years away, or do you reckon it's 10 years away? What do you reckon?
Oh, gosh. Look, I'd love it if it was, 5 years away. Because, yes, it just seems so unnecessary to me because we have got better, technology. And the Selectronic technology is so proven.
Yeah.
There's people I've spoken to that have got some of the very early sine wave inverters that are 25 years old and still going.
Yeah.
The main problem that people have with some of that older stuff is if their solar inverter fails, what do they do? I was talking to a guy just the other day, and they had a system in New South Wales. They've moved it to Melbourne. It's still going. It had this tiny little good week because it was originally on grid. So they're probably going to go DC coupled because they can't go with any of the modern AC coupled because it's an older SP Pro. But yeah, I mean, we try to be as backward compatible as possible and, you know, give people that option that, your battery bank might be 12 years old, so you need to replace it, but you don't have to replace your inverter. And
is that right? So I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So even with like a really old inverter, you can still upgrade your whole battery offering you got.
Yeah. I mean, it gets more limited.
Yeah. Because you can't do that. You can't do that with solar, right? A lot of the time, like when if you want to expand your solar,
you've
either got to rip the whole system out, or it's just it can be very difficult to be compatible with the newer systems. So that's different with you guys, is it?
Oh, it's complete. I mean, there is limitations.
Yep.
So if you've got a very old one, you might be looking at just using lead acid. Or something of that, you know, kind of dumb nature. You can use Power Plus as well, or Gen Z, because they don't need to have a comms connection. They're managing themselves. If you want to go with like a fully managed battery, like a BYD, or use our Select Cell, then you've got to have that comms connection. So you've got to have a more modern SP Pro to do that. But the SP Pro is the brains. So it's taking all of these different inputs into it and then coordinating them all.
Well, I'm learning something here because I'm a solar nerd, right? I've made it pretty clear, like I haven't been really great with batteries and really I've made an effort probably the last 12 months or so to learn more about batteries. Off-grid though is another thing I'm not really...
Oh, look, it's a niche within a niche.
Oh, for sure it is. It's so interesting though. So I'm finding it really, really interesting. Although sometimes the more I learn, the more complicated it can get as well. Yes. So you really need these experts around to know.
Absolutely. To
know what's going on.
That's why it's so great working with Lindsay Hart. I mean, he's lived off-grid for 29 years. He bought his block of land when he was, you know, I think his kids might have been born, but just tiny little girls. And, he has grown his family. His children have moved out, and one of his daughters got married just recently. He's never had a connection to the grid, and every few years he'll have a look and see what it costs and have a think about. Oh no,
he's not going to do it, is he?
No,
surely not now.
He doesn't need to. No. I mean, he's never had a bill from a utility in all that time, and that's the great thing about it as well. You're absolutely independent.
Yeah, it is. It's interesting. I actually listened. I might have only been a week or two ago to the podcast he did with Supply Partners. When was that? Might have been a couple of months ago, maybe.
Yeah.
Really interesting. Really interesting, and learning about how Selectronic started.
Yes.
That whole story about the technology that I can't remember exactly what. I can't remember the story now. I know I was captivated by it.
Yeah.
I think it was they were doing. Was it motor windings or something like that?
Yeah, they were making transformers.
That's right. And he told the story about how the market wasn't ready for the technology that they had.
That's right. Yeah.
Very interesting.
The alternative lifestylers were, though.
Yeah.
And they started to run with it, and it just grew from there. And I mean, it would have been shacks out in the bush. They would have been using a lot of wood and things like that to heat water and heat their homes. They probably may have even used gas lamps and stuff like that. But then, you know, they could have a small amount of electrical equipment because solar panels were an absolute fortune.
That's where all the money was back then.
Yep.
Much cheaper now.
And the batteries weren't cheap then either because they're still not cheap now.
Yeah.
People say, should I wait till the battery price drops? Well, look, it might a little bit, but, you know, it's a bit like when solar started.
Yep.
People that started early did really well, even though they paid a lot of money for their systems.
Yep.
So if you have a need for it, I say just do it, you know.
Definitely makes sense. Makes sense to do.
Yeah.
Are you still getting any of those sort of off the beaten track shacks? Do you still do much of that stuff? Or
absolutely.
You still are doing that, are you?
Absolutely, yeah. Look, 80% of what we do is off-grid.
Yeah.
About 20% is on grid. So that's that grid augmentation, supporting a weak grid staff, people that if they lose power, they're going to lose money.
Yeah.
So they need a real whole of home or whole of business backup.
Yeah.
That's about 20% of what we do.
Yeah. No, look, I sort of realised that. Maybe I'm thinking of the lay of the land, what it was sort of like 15 years ago. It used to be a bit more DIY, didn't it? Like batteries.
Yeah.
It's sort of changed a bit now, isn't it? It's a bit more. It's a bit. It can be quite complicated and complex. You need to be. I suppose you need to be trained in knowing what you're doing now.
Yeah, look, I think there's more of a rise of the luxury off-grid home.
I suppose that's probably where I was going with it. Yeah, the off-grid. So that, like the luxury. I suppose your Airbnb. That seems to me where naturally you would move to, and you'd get a lot of your business from there.
Well, yeah, the alternative lifestyle is in the beginning it was compromise. Now you can actually have your power and use it too. You know, you can have underfloor heating, you can have air conditioning, you can have electric cooktop, you can have your EV, you can have all of that. You know, you just got to put enough SP Pros, so that's your charging and discharging, and you got to put enough batteries, enough solar to charge it all up. So yeah, you can absolutely do it. I mean, we can do some pretty decent sized systems, and we've had architects come to us and say, "Oh, yep, we're going to do the absolute maximum." Which is 240 kilowatts of battery inverter capacity. So that's what it can continuously charge and discharge. With 400 kilowatts of managed AC coupled solar. So
it's a lot of power. Jeez.
It's a lot, yeah. So there's resorts that run off Selectronic and all sorts of stuff.
Here's a question without notice. What's the most interesting job you've seen so far with Selectronic?
Oh, the most interesting job. Oh, now you're putting me on the spot. I might have to come back to that one.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, maybe come back to that, and we'll get back to that in the last part.
Yeah.
So, Selectronic, it's a Australian-owned company.
Absolutely, has been
100% Australian-owned.
Yeah, from the very beginning, from 1964.
Yeah. So what's interesting about that too is you'd be one of the only manufacturers in Australia in solar. Is that right? I mean, there's probably a few around.
There are a few.
Yeah.
So there's Tindo and...
Well, yeah, Tindo's the obvious one with the panels.
Yeah, and isn't there another panel manufacturer as well? Or am I?
Sure. Maybe. I don't know.
I think there might be.
Might be for another episode. I'll have a look at that.
Yeah. And look, Power Plus.
Yeah, Power Plus. Another one.
Yeah. And then there's Solar Analytics and Catch Power. Who have now
the same company.
Yeah.
You do much with them?
I believe our installers do use them.
Yeah.
To be honest, I don't know a lot about what people are doing as a whole package.
Yeah.
But yeah, if there's call for that, then absolutely, they'll be using that as part of the system. As a manufacturer, where manufacturing that brain of the system.
Yep.
But then it's up to that retailer, system integrator to bring all of those elements together to create a system.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So who else have you got there? I noticed you mentioned Samir Jacob as your marketing manager. He's new there, is that right?
That's right. Yeah, he's only been with us for a few weeks, but he's already kicking goals.
Yeah, that's right. How's that going? He's doing really well.
Yeah, he's doing great. I'm already noticing that we've got more of a social media presence.
He's doing your social media, is he?
Yeah, well, I mean, he's doing our marketing, which is part of that.
Yeah.
But we've got Rosie and Paul that do a lot of that as well. So Paul does a lot of the editing and Rosie does a lot of the posting.
Yeah.
But they all come together and come up with the ideas and and I'm sure we'll be doing a lot of fun things with Samir.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Do you guys do much overseas?
We'd like to expand.
Yeah.
So Samir's role is a global role.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you guys historically been in Australia? Is that mainly
it's definitely
core
our stronghold.
Yeah.
But we've had some associations with German companies and we did sell the SB Pro in Germany, rebadged.
Okay.
For a local company there for a period of time. We've always had a presence in New Zealand.
Yep.
We've got a presence in Indonesia.
Yeah, I was going to say, surely, what about the Pacific Islands? Normally that's a big place for off-grid stuff.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
But the same problem applies there as it does here. A lot of it is diesel generation. Yeah. And, we have to try and educate and fund for that to change.
What do you reckon is stopping it? Like, so is it the price? Is it people's appetite? Is it education? What do you think is?
I think it's probably all of those things.
All of those things?
Yeah, because, why would you change something that appears at least to be working? So there's your appetite and the education. Sometimes people don't necessarily know that there is a different way of doing things until they discover it. I definitely think that was the case for me.
Yeah.
I think we're ignorant that it's going on, that diesel's being burnt for power. We're used to it being burnt to move our trucks and drive our cars or petrol or whatever.
Yeah.
But, for power generation, like it just seems ludicrous. And yet, even some of the grids that we've got, we're using gas and then diesel as well. The Darwin, Catherine, Alice Springs. Alice Springs is gas and diesel, that grid. Yeah, and they've done good things. They've put in big batteries here and there, and they do have some solar, and they put in one of the first solar farms in Alice Springs.
Yeah.
In 2011. They've got the Centre for Appropriate Technologies.
Yep.
So they've been testing solar panels out in the desert for, a really long time.
Yeah. I've heard about that.
Yeah, but there's still just a lot of diesel because, diesel's more responsive than gas apparently when it comes to turbines.
Is that right?
Yeah.
More responsive than gas?
Yeah, so when they need to bring on more generation quickly, they have to do it, I think, and I could be getting this wrong. I went to a talk from the grid operator a number of years ago.
So those ads we're seeing on TV, have you seen those ads for the gas saying Australia keeps the power on because we can't turn these you can't turn the sun on or you can't turn the wind up, and then it shows the gas. Have you seen those ads on TV?
No, I haven't actually. They're awful, are they?
Oh, it's horrible. It shows people flicking lights on when they want, and then it basically shows gas, and that's keeping Australia's power on. Yeah. It's just gas industry lobbyists just wanting to stay relevant, I think. And they make it out as if gas is the thing that's giving us our power when we need it.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, some of our turbines are running on gas. They're not running on, or they're running on burning coal. We're not, generating power unless we're doing it on our own homes and solar farms. We're not, or wind farms. We're not doing it renewably.
Yeah,
and that is the reality.
But so, as far as response goes, isn't batteries the quickest responder? That's what I've heard.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So if you've got stored power in a battery.
Yeah.
That's going to be much faster than any other technology out there, whether it's coal, whether it's gas, whether it's diesel generation.
Yeah. But, you're working against conservative distribution network service providers and the owners of that equipment. And they've got, part of the problem with the Alice Springs grid is that they had a lot of power outages and copped a lot of flack for that. So they must lose money, get fined or whatever. I don't know what the story is there, but they get in trouble.
Yeah,
if the grid goes down.
When the power goes off.
Yeah.
Interesting stuff. Well, we've got a long way to go, that's for sure. Yeah,
we do. Yeah.
Well, it looks like you guys are leading the way with it.
Yeah.
And it's really good to see. Really good to see an Australian company out there doing it.
Yeah.
Making a huge difference.
Yeah. Power line replacements is a big part of what, utilities are coming to us to do.
Yeah, right. Interesting. So are you talking about when things like a tree might come down on a power line or anything like that and they go, hang on, this is actually costing us so much money to maintain this infrastructure. Let's put a microgrid in. Is that sort of happening?
Yeah, absolutely. It's happening across Australia. Western Power and
Western Power I've heard are big with this.
Yeah,
and Horizon as well, I think.
Yep, Horizon and in Victoria, AusNet and all of them. They're doing it in Essential Energy. But yes, the maintenance of the poles and wire is a huge expense.
So I'm interested in this. So do they come to you guys for solutions? Is that? Or
yeah. Well, they put it out, and they are always doing off-grid trials, which is, something that we kind of get a little bit frustrated because, you know, we've been doing off-grid for so long.
Yeah.
Why does it need to be
Trialed.
trialed again?
Yeah, silly.
I know. Yeah.
Interesting though. So I've always wondered this. So they own the poles and wires, right?
Yeah.
When there's a microgrid, does the distributor own that infrastructure?
That's the way they're doing it.
That's the way they're doing it.
Yeah.
So they're maintaining it as well?
Yes. But it's still cheaper for them to do that and then be able to remove those poles and wires down the track, because usually they're staying connected for a period of time because it's a trial and they want it to be proven.
Yep.
But yeah, then what happens is that they go, yep, we've got good reliable power. The customer still gets a bill like they normally would.
Yep.
So the customer doesn't have to pay up front to have it.
Okay, so there's some benefit there.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I don't know, the cynic in me makes me think that, oh, well, they're just wanting to get in on off-gridders and, you know, making sure that they're always paying their fees back to the utility when they're actually off-grid. Because really, if you're off-grid, you don't have a utility. You're the utility. Your installer's the utility, really.
That's the way it's usually been done. But now it's the utilities are getting involved.
Yeah. It's good. Is that a good step forward?
Look, I think so.
Yeah. It sounds like it probably is, I think.
Yeah. Look, it's a tough one because if you can't afford to go off grid yourself, but you've got unreliable power.
Yeah.
You know, you're at a swear line, you're end of that line. You know, you can barely switch on an air conditioner or run a heater. Or use a gas, you know, use a electric cooktop or whatever your problem is.
Yep.
I mean, there was a whole schools program that was going around because, again, all those schools in those remote areas had insufficient power.
Yep.
You add solar and batteries and all of a sudden they can actually have some reliability.
Yeah. That's huge for them, I suppose, isn't it? That's
it's huge. It is.
Make a big difference to their lifestyle and what they're able to do day to day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very interesting. Well, yeah, it sounds like a good step forward. I don't know. Maybe just the cynic in me trying to think of all these other things. You know, they're always trying to make money out of someone.
Yeah. But there's always going to be people that can't afford it. And that's one of the unfortunate things I think about this solar revolution that we're going through is that homeowners are putting it on their homes, but people that are renting are not getting the benefits necessarily. And it would be nice if there was a way that we could share that. And I mean, there is some sharing in that if you're grid connecting and you're feeding back into the grid, that it might be reducing the overall cost of electricity. But you're not really seeing very many discounts coming from power companies at the moment. That's for sure. Yeah, I think that's definitely something we can be cynical about.
Yeah, for sure. Interesting. I know Solar Vic have had a bit of a go at trying to get renters. And
yes, that's a good program. I do remember hearing about that. That yes, as a landlord you can do stuff, but landlords are getting out at the moment because of the land tax.
Yeah, of course, that's right. Interesting. Yeah. All right. Well, I think we're going to go to our next break anyway. I think once we come back, let's have a chat about a few things that are happening in the industry, and also want to have a little bit of a chat about what's happening with wires at the moment too.
Yeah, cool.
So. All right, so we'll go to another word from our sponsors and we'll be back in just a few moments. Okay, so Leila, I meant to ask you this at the start of the program and I didn't. I forgot again. So I want to ask you, are you a sidekick, solar sidekick, or are you a superhero? Where do you fit in?
Oh, you know, I wish I could say superhero. But, you know, I'm working with people like Lindsay Hart, you know, he's a solar pioneer, and Ken Scott as well, he's a solar pioneer.
Yep.
You know, you meet people like Catherine Ryan and, you know, definitely admiring of all those people and like to consider myself to be a sidekick.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. I was just mentioning before, no one's come in and said they're a superhero yet, but that's okay. I think you're a superhero in the industry.
Oh, thank you.
And look, I don't expect you to say that about yourself.
Yeah.
But a lot of people won't anyway. But that's
interesting. Oh, look, I think we're all playing our part.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just such a great industry, and it's something we can be so proud of. And you know, proud to be working for Selectronic and you know, helping you know, make a difference.
Most definitely. I think there is a sense of pride. I think that in everyone who works in the industry.
Yeah.
We all get on really well as well a lot of the time, and we're all got a common goal. And I think Astrid said it really well. We're all a little bit crazy too.
Yeah.
Probably got to be a bit crazy to be in solar.
Yeah, definitely. We're at the cutting edge and we're on the solar coaster. I mean, it is. It's so, legislation changes all the time and getting kicked around like a political football and all that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Definitely. All right. I wanted to ask you about some diversity in the industry. So not just in the solar industry, but in the electrical industry.
Yeah.
So how do you think females have sort of fitted into our industry? It's a male-dominated industry, electrical or solar.
Yeah.
There's more females coming in, which is it's a really, really good thing.
Yeah.
What have you got to say about that? What comments do you have on where that all sits at the moment and where it's been and where we're going?
Look, I've had some discussions with, prominent people within the industry, and sometimes there's a little bit of you just got to get the best person for the job, whether it's a man or a woman. But for me, the visibility was the key thing. That's what actually showed me that it was possible to do this. So I remember in year 7, a female Sparky came to our school and talked about what she did, and it just opened my eyes. It just planted that seed. Oh wow, actually this is something that I could do.
What did she do? What sort of Sparky work was she doing? She was
just a light and power Sparky.
Yeah. Just a house basher.
Yeah, just a house basher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And didn't go into it a hell of a lot, and there she was. Yep. And when I was working at Monash University, I'm walking around with my ladder and my toolbox and my overalls.
Yeah.
Electrical department on my but as a Sparky now, I don't wear it as a badge.
Yeah.
So people don't necessarily know that I'm technical. They don't necessarily know that I am trade qualified until we speak.
Yeah.
And probably that's the biggest obstacle that I've come across being in the electrical industry, being in solar, is that as a woman, you generally have to prove yourself every time. Every time you meet somebody new, there's that little bit of hesitation from them. They don't necessarily expect you to be technical or to be trade qualified. And usually once that's overcome, everything's sweet. 99.9% of people I've met have been supportive and want to see more diversity. But it doesn't get seen. So being visible, I think, is just so important. Yeah. What
was it about that experience in year 7 that lit a fire under you that made you think, oh, this is something I might want to do? What was it?
It didn't light a fire.
No.
But it just
interesting? You just thought it was interesting?
No, look, it just put the idea there.
Yeah, I suppose that's stripping it back even further. That wasn't even something that was real. You didn't even think that was. Yeah.
No, it wasn't even on my radar. I mean, you don't know what you want to do in year 7, and then in year 9 and year 10, you've got to start thinking about your career. And again, I think most young people just don't know what they want to do at all. I mean, maybe some have always had a desire, always wanted to cure cancer or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But things open up to you, but you just don't know what you don't know. And, visibility of, so a woman who wants to come up into something like solar can actually see that it's possible, because you don't do what you don't see as possible. I mean, it's a problem even in our, female-dominated industries.
Yeah.
How many male primary school teachers are there?
Yep.
And so do children growing up then think as young boys, oh, I could be a primary school teacher? They probably don't.
Yep.
And that's not good either. So, we need to welcome that diversity if we want that diversity to happen.
Yep.
And we need to, for our young people to see themselves in that picture.
Yeah. I agree with that. I think that's a really good point, and especially about the males as well, because it's got to come from both sides, I think. And there's when you're talking about female dominated industries, like primary school teachers or health, what else is there?
Yeah,
there's
nursing.
Nursing. Nursing. Those type of ones that are predominantly female dominated or historically female dominated.
Childcare.
Childcare.
Yeah. My boy was lucky enough to go to a childcare in Darwin. There was a man working there.
Yeah.
But people would invariably think he was gay. He wasn't. He had a girlfriend.
Yeah.
He just wanted to work in childcare. He had his guitar, he sang to the children, and he wanted to be a dad. He was a lovely, lovely young man. Yeah.
Well, that's a bit upsetting that people just make assumptions about people just because of their chosen profession.
Absolutely. And we need to stop doing that. We do. We need to welcome people, and that's why I love a wise.
Yeah.
Because
maybe again, Steve did this to me last week. Maybe you should be the host here because you've just gone a beautiful segue into our next talking conversation.
Yeah,
a wise. Okay, so Australian women in solar energy.
Yeah,
So you've done a bit of stuff with them. Been involved recently in a program that they're doing.
Yeah, when I first started with Selectronic, I reached out to Sam Craft. I found her on LinkedIn. And she said, I'll join a wise. And a wise had only just sort of started at that point. And I was like, oh, wow. Because, I've spent my whole life in electrical apart from my stint doing my baby's music and art classes and stuff when I was in Karratha. I don't think there's really an equivalent in electrical. I did come across a tradeswomen group in Western Australia, and there might be something like that here in Victoria. But
I think there's some things that are starting to happen. I think the ETU are getting involved in the few things, and there's a lot of encouragement with getting women in trades and those sort of things. But there's probably nothing like a wise that I know of, which is so grassroots.
Yes.
I know there's women in renewables with the CEC, but again, that's more. That's more the broader industry, and it's more sort of top end of town. It seems to be more on the policy advocacy side of things. Wise is grassroots movement where it's got people on the ground in solar businesses,
exactly,
selling systems, installing systems, and they're the ones at the forefront doing it.
Absolutely, yeah. Bobby McKibben is a business owner. Christine Kennedy is a business owner. Lee's solar and batteries in Sydney. That's her company, and she's an electrician as well. The people that are they're actually working and advocating and wanting to be the change that they want to see.
Interesting. They certainly are doing that. So many leaders you're talking about there.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that I've recently involved in was their mentor training.
So tell us a bit about that program that they're doing.
So the idea is they're calling it Solar Sisters, to help women and people from diverse backgrounds to make the next move in their career. So we did some mentor training. And then mentees can apply to have a mentor.
Beautiful. So, and they're looking for mentees. They're looking for mentees at the moment. Is that right?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. So you can apply, and you need to answer some questions, and then you can have a mentor assigned to you. And then you can just ask me questions if I become your mentor, and I'll tell you all about my experiences and encourage you to take your space. So I think that's kind of key, for me. I haven't had too many bad experiences because I've always, stood up tall, even though I'm very short, and said, I'm supposed to be here. Of course I'm supposed to be here.
Yeah. You certainly fit into the space quite well, I think. So is that, if anyone wants to be part of that program, do they just get in contact with the Wise? Is that the best thing to do?
Yep. So if you Google a Wise website, I think you might do some links or whatever with the podcast as well.
Yeah, we can do that.
For
sure. We'll put a link in there. Most definitely.
Yeah, sweet.
Interesting. And that was, so I saw a bit of social media a couple of photos, I think it was from that day where you all got together. Was it probably in the city, was it, where you did that?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, it was
that looked like a fun day.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah.
So many
Yeah.
interesting minds, and I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall that day.
I know. Just the collective intelligence in the room.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sophie Wright, also a business owner here in Victoria.
Yep.
Carolina.
From
Carolina.
Clenergy?
No. She's from Nation Energy.
Right.
Carolina.
Carolina. Sorry.
Carolina.
Yes.
I said Lena, but Carolina.
Yes.
Astrid.
Yeah.
Bobby, of course. I'm missing a couple. Anne Wilson was there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lauren?
Is
she from Supply Partners? She does the...
yes, of course. Lauren was there. Oh, yeah, and Nadine from Central Spark.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I think I may have covered everybody. I hope I haven't missed anybody out.
No, that's all right.
Yeah.
No, very good. Very in tune.
Yeah. So, yes, you can be mentored by all these amazing women, and they're all working in different fields within the solar industry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Certainly a lot of experience there. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
No, that's very good. All right. So we might go to some of the things that are happening in the industry this week. Bit of a wrap up on what's been happening in the industry news. So I don't know if you saw or not. There was a pretty big fire on the Olympic Park Aquatic Centre in Sydney. News reports look like they're blaming solar. It's a little bit hard to get specific information on it from what I saw. I couldn't see when the installation had happened. I've just done a quick sort of Google on it, and I don't have near map, so I couldn't work it out. So I don't know how old the system is, if it's a bit of a legacy system. From the way people were talking online, I don't think it is. It looked like it had been installed in the last sort of maybe 5 years, I think, but I'm not 100% sure about that. So that's not great for the industry. Seeing a fire was all over the news, all over social media. Not very good. I suppose that's another opportunity for me to bang on about my mandatory inspections, which New South Wales still don't have. I'm just going to keep saying it. Don't know why they don't have it. They need to get onto it though. And these are the sort of incidents which, I mean, I don't know exactly what had happened, but potentially they can be prevented if you got stuff that's catching fire and it hasn't been inspected. Who knows?
So where do we have mandatory inspections?
So we've got mandatory inspections. Currently, the model in Victoria is the only one we have where it's the model that we do, where you get a licensed electrical inspector who goes and checks it, contracted by the electrical contractor. And then we also have them in ACT and Tasmania.
Okay.
Everywhere else doesn't have mandatory inspections. They do have some states have got some type of inspection regime that they've got.
Random.
Yeah. Well, yeah, if you're talking New South Wales or Queensland, it's probably really random. You're probably only talking about when something goes wrong in Queensland, from my understanding.
Yep.
And New South Wales, they do a few with the utility, like Ausgrid. They do their own inspections sometimes.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not at the level it is in Victoria, where you got licensed electrical inspectors doing it.
Yeah.
Then you've got SolarVic, you've got CER on top of that as well.
Yeah.
And ESV do their own too.
Yeah. Is there any way of kind of looking at statistics and seeing how many potentially dangerous?
Absolutely. So I've done. This is the thing I keep talking about.
Yeah, sure.
This is what I brought some statistics to the Smart Energy Conference when I spoke up there in whenever it was in March, I think.
Yep.
I don't know what they are at the top of my head, but I can bring them to the show next week. But basically, it's pretty close to half of unsafes. It's pretty much. It might have been less unsafe installations in Victoria compared to New South Wales. I did a comparison of unsafe installations.
Yep.
This is data coming from the CER.
Yep.
And then there was substandard as well. And off the top of my head, I think it was 31% of substandard. Now, that can mean different things, but 31% of substandard installs in New South Wales compared to Victoria was 18. So that's a pretty big difference.
Yeah.
And I also raised that, potentially you've got inspectors in New South Wales or CR inspectors who aren't as well trained as they are in Victoria, because it's not really a thing.
Yeah.
Like I know I've done formal training to be a licensed electrical inspector. I spent a lot of time on it and a lot of effort. Got the qualification, and they just don't have that up there. They've got installers doing the inspections.
Yeah.
So it's probably worse than that. But anyway, I just don't want these sort of things to happen, like the fire. And I keep saying, no, we don't want people dying in our industry.
Thankfully, nobody was injured or killed.
Yeah,
in this event.
That's right, exactly. I mean, I saw some things. There was some big evacuations, and
it definitely. There was a swimming carnival on, so it disrupted a lot of people's lives.
Yeah.
So it's definitely not something that you want. Never want that destruction of property and all the rest of it. And if it can be prevented. The sad thing is, disasters and deaths often are the motivating.
I know. This is
factor.
it. This is what I keep saying. I was talking to Steve about this last week. Like, we don't want there to be a coroner's inquest, and the recommendations of that are, we're recommending mandatory inspections. Like, the evidence is all there now.
Yeah. So how did we get to inspections in Victoria? Like, why are we so far in front?
Look, there's a whole story behind it, but basically it's because it's prescribed work in Victoria, and prescribed work includes anything to do with a switchboard or mains or a generator, which solar is a generator.
Solar is a generator, yep.
Yeah, and that requires inspection. Yep. So solar has just fallen into that category.
Yeah.
And
you'd think that the DNSPs would be wanting that because, solar is affecting the network.
So they do it in Ausgrid.
Yes.
They're a bit more proactive, and they have had inspections. But again, they also do it with Energy Queensland. So they do inspections too.
Yep.
But what happens is the installer they get the findings of it sent back to them, and then they're like, I don't care. What are you going to do? Take my license away? You can't do that. I don't have my license with you.
So even if there's defects, they don't have to rectify?
Well, they say they have to rectify them, but because they don't have a license with Energy Queensland or with Ausgrid, they just don't bother about it. And I know it drives Ausgrid and Energy Queensland nuts.
Yeah, wow.
So of the people I've spoken to who work there, it drives them crazy because they can't. They've got nothing.
Yeah, they've got no teeth.
No, they've got no teeth to make them go back and do it.
Yeah, wow.
I mentioned that to someone. I asked someone at the conference from Energy Queensland. I said, "So what do you do when this happens? You send it to the ESO?" They said, "Yeah, we do send it to the ESO, and they don't care." So that's a bit of a concern.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's hope things change and we don't have these sort of incidents.
Well, it's like what we're talking about with the whys. We've got to talk about this stuff because how do people know otherwise?
That's right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Other thing I want to mention is we had the federal budget this week. So been a lot of good press about it as far as the clean energy industry goes. So seems to be a lot in it for hydrogen, for manufacturing, green manufacturing in Australia.
Yeah.
Large scale stuff.
Yeah.
I think that's great, and I certainly don't want to talk any of that down. I noticed a bit of a glaring hole with small scale. Doesn't seem to be much in it for the small scale industry. That's just my opinion anyway. Whether it's going to be support from the government or an acknowledgement, putting some money into something or a rebate program or whatever it is, something to support businesses who are actually doing it quite tough at the moment.
Yeah.
And for me, it seems, I don't know, like to be able to be giving, I don't know what even it is, a $300 rebate or something for your power bill, I think, is what they're doing. To me, that just seems like another subsidy for the coal.
What is it, a Band-Aid on a
for sure. Well, power prices will just go up, or I don't know. It just seems ridiculous to me. And again, I'm not in that space, but it just was glaringly obvious. So I would like to see a bit more in it for small scale businesses because the biggest thing we can do is put panels on roofs, and that's going to make the biggest difference. Yeah. So anyway, I'll jump off my high horse after that one. Another thing I want to mention, which I didn't write down, but I think we've had a couple of industry events this week as well. So I've spoken to a couple of people who were at SEA in
Bendigo.
SEA Vic in Bendigo. Seems like that was a big event. I think about 180 people, and it sold out.
Yeah.
You didn't make your way up this year?
No, I didn't.
I didn't either.
Yeah, got a bit of FOMO on that.
Yeah.
I'm sure it was a great event. Yeah,
I've heard it was quite good, quite engaging.
Well, it usually is. The SEA events, SEA Victoria does a really good, engaging couple of days. It's it's always great speakers. Informative stuff. They've had financial planners. They've had Lotus Energy talking about, recycling panels and other bits and pieces. Just always important information.
Really grassroots as well.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, yeah.
That's how it started, isn't it? It's like started such a small organisation with just the people, the pioneers, I suppose, in the
solar
industry.
pioneers, absolutely. Yeah.
So that was a good event. And I've spoken to people. So we're recording this on the Friday. And yesterday was a cutters event in Adelaide.
Oh, okay.
So
I didn't know about that one.
Yeah, there's a solar cutters event in Adelaide. And
Yeah.
it's hard. Do you reckon it's hard now to stay up with all the events?
Oh, look, there's so much on all the time.
Well, we've just been, right, we've
Yeah.
just spent, the best
Brisbane.
part of a week in Brisbane.
Yeah.
I feel like we only just got back as well from the Smart Energy Conference.
Yeah.
There's just stuff happening all the time. I went to the cutters event, which was at Hyatt, not far from here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, maybe we're all just still catching up after COVID. I don't know, but it seems like there's events on one after the other. I hope that's not watering down. I hope it's not watering down some of the good events.
Look, I think you got to pick your events. And go to the ones that are really going to work for you. And I would love to have been in Victoria for SEA. Well, I'm in Victoria, but in Bendigo for SEA. I mean, the solar cutter events are always amazing events.
Yep.
Costa does such a great job.
Yep.
And Lauren, and there's
a lot on the calendar, isn't there?
There is, yeah. And, we shouldn't run around too much like crazy people. Got other things that we all need to do as well. But, if you want to learn stuff and do stuff, there's plenty of opportunities.
Yeah, that's good. I think pretty much all of those events we spoke about are eligible for CPD, which is good for installers and designers to make sure that they're
keeping their
up to date. And look, I think everyone still always looks forward to All Energy in Melbourne. That's always the big one, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
That we're all catching up at.
Yeah.
That's always the big one. So we've already started planning for that this year.
Yeah,
so.
Look, they're already trying to sell you the stall before you've even vacated the... Yeah.
Are you guys going to do a stall this year?
I'm sure we will.
You will?
And I'm sure we'll have a lot of announceables by then as well.
Just a bit of a teaser for us?
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Nothing you can share with us today, is there? No, not yet.
No. Look, unfortunately, we've got the biggest R&D team we've had forever.
Yep.
But things take a long time to develop.
Yep.
And you got to get it right before you release it to market. So,
yeah, for sure. That's good. You're making sure you get it right.
Yeah.
All right, no worries. Well, is there any? I think we're coming towards the end of the show now. Do you have any closing remarks you want to share with any of our listeners, Leila?
Oh, wow. Yeah. That's a very open-ended question. You did ask me about what was the best sort of Selectronic installation that I've been involved in.
I did.
There was a great one that we actually gave a Solar Cutters Award for at All Energy last year, I think it was.
Yep.
And that was a really interesting one because it was a property that had power.
Yep.
And they had power lines going across their property and obscuring the view, basically. So they got rid of the power lines.
Right.
Yeah.
So they're off grid, right?
No, they were initially on grid.
They were initially on grid, so they were using those power lines?
They were using those power lines.
And then they're like, no, get rid of them.
Yeah. And I think that's a great example of Selectronic, especially if the supply was insufficient, which I think was also a factor.
Yeah.
But, you're in this beautiful bush setting and you've got the trees and you've got the creek and you've got the sunsets and you've got power lines coming straight across. So, yeah. And they're a fire hazard as well.
Yeah.
On a bush block.
A lot of the bushfires. I mean, Black Saturday was started from that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So that's.
I'm so disappointed they went and put the power lines back in. They didn't have to. But it's very hard for people, without that education, for the conservative utilities to actually go, hang on, we can do things differently.
Yep.
And there are definitely departments within the utilities that are working that out. Hence, there's these, SAP, standalone power system programs and power line replacement programs and various off-grid trials. And but there's also a part of it that says, "Oh, stop doing the trials and just get on with it."
That's right. How long have we been doing trials for now?
I don't know. Maybe we're just that way inclined as Australians, and we just want to keep trying and. Which is great because you don't want to just sort of settle and you always want to do the best. But, sometimes there's a point when you just got to go, let's just do it. And, the people that put in solar early reaped the benefits. So, let's reap the benefits.
Interesting. Well, they're very wise words, I think. Let's reap the benefits. Well, let's hope that more people, and whether it's cattle stations as well, or whether it's people in remote communities, are going for batteries as their backup. I suppose that's probably
if they've got grid and it's weak and they're going to lose money if they lose power. Batteries are the way to go.
Batteries.
And if you're looking at putting the grid in and it's going to cost you $60,000, well, you can get a great Selectronic system for that. And you're not going to want for power if it's all been, your loads and everything have been assessed properly, especially your overnight loads and, how much solar input you're going to be able to get from your, solar inverters and panels and whatnot. You can have a great system. You can have your power and, never want for it and never have a bill. A bit of maintenance on your system. But, you've got independence then.
Yeah, well, let's hope the rest of the country... Well, I won't say wakes up, but let's hope that more of it becomes more prevalent because it seems to be the way to go. We don't want to be burning diesel.
Absolutely, we don't. And, a lot of people maybe bought bush blocks or whatever during COVID, get out of the city, get some freedom, and discovered there was no power. Doesn't mean you can't have a luxury home there. But it's all about education.
Yep, for sure. No worries. Well, thanks very much for that. Well, I appreciate you coming down to Carrum and making the journey, having a chat. It's been a really lovely chat. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you, Pat.
It's also been, it's been really nice to get to know you over the last few weeks or so.
Yeah.
Spent some time together in Brisbane, which was really nice. And
Sydney.
And Sydney as well, that's right. Yeah, so thanks very much for everything. And being on the podcast, it's been a really great episode. So thanks very much, Leila.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Pat.
No problem at all. All right, everyone. So comes to the end of the episode, and you'll hear from us next time on Solar Sidekicks. Thank you.